The echoing emptiness of St. Mary's Chapel was broken only by the soft sobbing of Willow Graham as she sat alone in the front pew, clutching a handkerchief dampened with tears that seemed to have no end. It was 1876, and Durango, Colorado had never felt more desolate than on this autumn day when she had come to mourn her husband of just 11 months. Willow's black mourning dress spread around her on the wooden pew, a dark pool of grief in the otherwise empty church. The past 3 weeks since Matthew's death in the silver mine collapse had been a blur of arrangements and paperwork, visitors bringing food she couldn't eat, and nights spent staring at the ceiling of a home that no longer felt like hers. "He was a good man," she whispered to no one, her voice carrying through the vacant chapel. The creaking of the church door behind her barely registered. Willow assumed it was Father Bennett returning to check on her as he had done twice already that morning. "Miss, are you all right?" The voice wasn't Father Bennett's. It was deeper, with a subtle southern drawl that didn't belong to anyone in Durango that she knew. Willow didn't turn around. I'm fine, just needed some time alone." Heavy boot steps echoed down the aisle. "Didn't mean to intrude, madam. Just saw the church door open and thought I'd make sure everything was in order." The footsteps stopped beside her pew, and Willow finally looked up through tear-blurred vision. A tall man stood there, his hat in his hands, revealing sandy brown hair that needed cutting. His clothes were dusty from the trail and a worn leather holster hung at his hip. "I've been riding since dawn," he said, his blue eyes studying her with a gentle concern that made Willow's chest tighten. "Saw the church and thought I might rest a spell. Didn't expect to find anyone here." "Just me," Willow replied, trying to compose herself. She was 23 years old and already a widow. The thought brought fresh tears, the stranger's weathered face softened. "I'm Adam Nichols, madam, just passing through on my way to Santa Fe." "Willow Graham," she answered automatically, then added, "Mrs. Graham." Adam nodded respectfully. "Mrs. Graham, is there someone I can fetch for you? Family, perhaps?" Willow shook her head. "No family, not anymore." Something in her tone must have told him everything he needed to know. Without another word, Adam Nichols slid into the pew beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. He didn't speak, didn't offer platitudes or unwanted comfort. He simply sat, his hat in his lap, gazing forward at the simple wooden cross that adorned the altar. After several minutes of silence, Willow found herself oddly comforted by his presence. "My husband died 3 weeks ago," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "Mining accident." "I'm sorry," Adam replied, the words simple but sincere. "Today would have been our first anniversary." Adam nodded, his eyes still on the altar. "It's a hard thing, losing someone you love. You speak as if from experience. My wife, 4 years ago, fever took her quick." His voice remained even, but Willow could hear the depth of feeling beneath it. Another silence fell between them, but this one felt different. Shared grief created an unexpected connection, a bridge across which understanding flowed. "I come here most days," Willow admitted. "It's quiet. No one bothers me with questions about what I'll do next or offers to buy our homestead." "People mean well," Adam said, "but they forget that sometimes silence is the kindest gift." Willow turned to study his profile. His face was tanned from long days under the sun, and the beginnings of crow's feet marked the corners of his eyes. She guessed him to be in his early 30s. "What brings you to Durango, Mr. Nichols?" "Adam, please." He shifted slightly to face her. "I've been working cattle drives between Texas and Colorado, heading to Santa Fe for the winter. My brother's got a ranch there. You're a long way from Texas." A small smile curved his lips. "Been a long way from Texas most of my life, madam." The church door opened again, and Father Bennett stepped inside, his elderly frame silhouetted against the bright day outside. Seeing Willow with company, he hesitated. "Mrs. Graham, is everything all right?" Willow straightened, suddenly aware of how it might look her sitting with a strange man alone in the church. "Yes, Father, Mr. Nichols was just keeping me company." Adam stood, his hat still in his hands. "Father," he said with a respectful nod. Father Bennett approached, his keen eyes taking Adam's measure. "You're new to Durango, son?" "Just passing through, Father, planning to be on my way this afternoon." The old priest's gaze softened as he looked at Willow. "Mrs. Graham has had a difficult time of late." "So I understand," Adam replied. He turned to Willow. "I should be on my way. Thank you for your company, Mrs. Graham." Something inside Willow panicked at the thought of him leaving. The brief moments of connection had been the first time since Matthew's death that she'd felt anything but hollow. "Mr. Nichols," she said quickly. "Have you had dinner? I mean," she faltered, aware of how forward she sounded. "I was just about to return home, and after riding since dawn, you must be hungry." Adam looked surprised, and for a moment, Willow thought he would decline. "That's very kind of you, madam, but I wouldn't want to impose." Father Bennett interjected gently. "Mrs. McCreary sent over a stew yesterday that could feed half the town. I'm sure Mrs. Graham would welcome the help in eating it." Willow shot the priest a grateful look. "It's true, and it would be nice to not eat alone for once." Adam hesitated, then nodded. "Well, I never could turn down a home-cooked meal, thank you. The Graham place is just east of town," Father Bennett said. "Small homestead with the blue door." "I know the way to town," Adam replied. "I can find it." As they stepped outside the church into the cool autumn air, Willow felt the first stirring of something besides grief in her heart. It wasn't happiness, exactly, that felt too far away, but perhaps it was hope. A tiny seed of it, planted in the barren soil of her heart. "I'll hitch up my wagon," she said, nodding toward where her horse and wagon were tethered. "Allow me," Adam replied, and as he walked ahead to help her, Willow found herself watching the steady confidence in his stride and wondering what twist of fate had brought him to her church on this of all days. The ride to Willow's homestead was mostly silent, with Adam following behind on his chestnut mare. The small house came into view as they crested a gentle hill, a modest cabin with the promised blue door, a barn in need of paint, and about 40 acres of land stretching toward the mountains. "It's not much," Willow said as they approached, suddenly self-conscious about the state of the place. Matthew had always been meaning to fix the sagging porch step and repaint the barn. "It's a fine piece of land," Adam replied, his eyes taking in the view. "Good water source, protected from the north wind by those hills." They settled the horses, and Willow led the way inside. The cabin was simple but clean, with a main room that served as both kitchen and living area and 2 doors leading to bedrooms. A fire burned low in the hearth, keeping the autumn chill at bay. "Please sit," Willow said, gesturing to the table as she moved to stoke the fire and hang the pot of stew over it. "It'll just take a few minutes to heat this up." Adam removed his hat and coat, hanging them by the door. "Can I help with anything?" "No, Willow began, then stopped herself. "Actually, there's bread in that cloth on the shelf. Would you mind slicing some?" Working together in the small kitchen created a domestic scene that made Willow's heart ache with both memory and something new. Adam moved with care, giving her space while still being present. "You mentioned you were married," Willow said as she stirred the stew. "May I ask her name?" "Sarah," Adam replied, his voice soft with remembrance. "She was a schoolteacher in Austin. We were married just under 2 years when the fever took her." "I'm sorry," Willow said, recognizing the inadequacy of the words even as she spoke them. "Thank you. It gets, not easier exactly, but different with time." He finished slicing the bread and arranged it on a plate. "How long were you and your husband together?" "We married last November. Knew each other 6 months before that." Willow's voice caught. "It wasn't nearly long enough." "No," Adam agreed quietly. "It never is." They sat to eat, and conversation gradually shifted to lighter topics. Adam spoke of his travels, of the cattle drives, and the characters he'd met along the way. Willow shared stories of Durango and how she'd come west from Ohio with her parents as a girl. "They passed within a year of each other, just before I met Matthew," she explained. "He was so kind during that time. I think that's why I fell in love with him, his kindness." "It's a rare quality in this world," Adam agreed, "worth cherishing when you find it." As the evening progressed, Willow found herself laughing at Adam's tale of a stubborn mule that had once stolen his hat and led him on a chase through a creek. It was the first time she'd laughed since Matthew's death, and the sound of it surprised her so much that she fell silent immediately after. Adam noticed. Laughter isn't disrespectful to his memory, you know. Willow's eyes filled with tears. It feels wrong to feel anything but grief. I thought the same, Adam said, his voice gentle. After Sarah. Felt guilty the first time I enjoyed a sunset or tasted food again. But I think they wouldn't want that for us, the ones we've lost. Willow wiped away a tear. No, Matthew wouldn't. He was always telling me to see the good in things. The light outside was fading and Adam glanced toward the window. I should be on my way. Find a place in town for the night. You could stay here, Willow said, then flushed at her boldness. I mean, we have the barn, it's clean and dry, better than paying for a room in town. Adam studied her face. Are you sure? I wouldn't want to cause any talk. People talk regardless, Willow replied with a small shrug. And it seems silly to send you back to town when there's perfectly good shelter here. The truth was, she wasn't ready for him to leave. His presence had given her the first respite from crushing loneliness in weeks, and the thought of returning to that emptiness made her heart clench. If you're certain, Adam said, I'd be grateful for the barn. Willow helped him settle his horse and showed him where the fresh hay was stored. The barn was basic but solid, with a small loft where Matthew had sometimes slept during lambing season. There are extra blankets in that chest, Willow said, pointing, and a lantern, though I'd ask you to be careful with it. Of course, Adam replied, and thank you, Mrs. Graham. For the meal and the shelter. Willow, please, she said, finding it strange to hear her married name from his lips. Willow, he repeated, and something in the way he said it made her heart beat a little faster. She left him in the barn and returned to the empty house, which somehow felt different than it had that morning. As she prepared for bed, Willow realized she hadn't thought about her grief for hours. The realization brought a fresh wave of guilt, which she pushed away, remembering Adam's words about laughter not being disrespectful. Sleep came easier that night than it had in weeks. Morning arrived with a soft rain pattering on the roof. Willow dressed and went to the kitchen to start breakfast, wondering if Adam was still in the barn or if he'd left at first light. The thought of him being gone created an unexpected hollowness in her chest. A knock at the door answered her question. Adam stood on her porch, his hat in his hands, hair damp from the rain. Good morning, he said. I was hoping I might offer to chop some wood for you before I head out, as thanks for your hospitality. Willow found herself smiling. That would be kind, thank you, but first breakfast. They shared a simple meal of eggs and the remaining bread. The rain continued outside, gentle but persistent. Doesn't look like it's letting up any time soon, Willow observed. Adam nodded. Might make for slow going to Santa Fe. Is there a rush to get there, I mean? Not particularly, he admitted. My brother's expecting me sometime this month, but no specific day. Willow hesitated, then said, You could stay another day if you wanted, until the weather clears. Their eyes met across the table and something unspoken passed between them. Understanding. Interest, possibility. I'd like that, Adam said simply. One day turned into two as the rain continued. Adam made himself useful, chopping wood, fixing the sagging porch step, and even patching a leak in the barn roof. Willow found herself watching him work, admiring not just his physical capabilities, but the care he took with her property. In the evenings, they talked. Adam told her more about his life growing up in Georgia, moving west after the war, finding and losing Sarah, his years working on ranches and cattle drives. Willow shared her own story, her childhood in Ohio, the journey west with her parents, their deaths, meeting Matthew at a town social. He was so nervous, he spilled cider all over my dress, she recalled with a fond smile. Then he insisted on buying me a new one, even though I told him it would wash out. He sounds like a good man, Adam said. He was, Willow agreed, finding that the memories brought more warmth than pain for the first time. What was Sarah like? Adam's eyes softened. Stubborn as a mule, smart as a whip, had opinions on everything and wasn't shy about sharing them, but kind too. The sort who'd notice if someone was struggling and find a way to help without making a fuss about it. You must miss her terribly. Every day, Adam acknowledged, but not in the same way as at first. Now I can remember the good without feeling like I'm drowning in what I've lost. On the third day, the rain finally stopped. Sunshine broke through the clouds, turning the wet landscape into a glittering panorama. Willow found Adam standing on her porch, gazing toward the mountains. "Beautiful country," he said as she joined him. "Yes," she agreed. "I've always thought so." A comfortable silence fell between them. Willow knew this meant he would be leaving, continuing on to Santa Fe as planned. The thought created a hollow feeling in her chest. "I should be on my way," Adam said finally, confirming her fears. "The trail will be muddy but passable." "Of course," Willow replied, keeping her voice steady. "Thank you for all your help these past few days." Adam turned to face her fully. "Willow, I've enjoyed my time here, more than I expected to enjoy anything again." Her heart quickened. "I have too." "I don't want to presume," he continued carefully, "and I know your grief is still fresh, but I'd like to write to you if that would be acceptable." "I'd like that," Willow replied, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. "Very much." Adam smiled, the expression transforming his face. "Good." "That's good." He left that afternoon, tipping his hat to her as he rode away. Willow watched until he disappeared from view, a strange mixture of sadness and hope swirling within her. The first letter arrived 3 weeks later, bearing a Santa Fe postmark. Adam wrote of his journey, his reunion with his brother, and the ranch where he was now working. His handwriting was neat but distinctly masculine, and Willow found herself tracing the letters with her fingertips, imagining his hand forming them. She wrote back the same day, telling him about the first snow of the season, how the town was preparing for Christmas, and her decision to sell some of Matthew's tools that she had no use for. Their correspondence continued through the winter. Adam's letters became a lifeline for Willow, something to anticipate and cherish. She found herself sharing thoughts she had never expressed aloud, her fears about the future, her memories of Matthew, her uncertainty about whether to keep or sell the homestead. Adam's replies were thoughtful and supportive. He never told her what she should do, only offered perspectives for her to consider. As the months passed, Willow found herself thinking of him more and more, wondering what he would say about this or that, imagining his reaction to the everyday occurrences of her life. In late March, his letter contained a question that made her heart race. "Would it be presumptuous of me to visit when the spring cattle drive brings me north again? I find myself thinking of our conversations by your fire more often than I care to admit." Willow's reply was immediate and affirmative. The prospect of seeing Adam again filled her with a nervous anticipation that she hadn't felt since her courtship with Matthew. The realization brought guilt, but she reminded herself of Adam's words about laughter not being disrespectful to memory. April arrived with its characteristic unpredictability: warm sunshine one day, snowfall the next. Willow found herself paying more attention to her appearance than she had in months, pinching color into her cheeks and ensuring her hair was neatly arranged each morning, just in case today was the day Adam arrived. The knock came on a Tuesday afternoon as Willow was kneading bread dough. She wiped her hands hastily on her apron and smoothed her hair before opening the door. Adam stood on her porch, hat in hand, looking much as he had the day they met, perhaps a bit more tanned from the southern sun, his hair a little longer. But his blue eyes were the same, warming as they met hers. "Hello, Willow," he said, his voice just as she remembered. "Adam," she replied, suddenly shy despite months of intimate correspondence. "You're here," he smiled. "I am. Hope that's still all right." "Of course," she said quickly, stepping back. "Please come in." Adam entered, removing his coat. "The place looks good. You fixed the window frame." "Mr. Peterson helped with that," Willow explained, pleased that he'd noticed. "Coffee, please." They settled into a rhythm surprisingly quickly, considering it had been nearly 6 months since they'd last seen each other. Conversation flowed easily, picking up threads from their letters and finding new ones. "How long will you be in the area?" Willow asked as they sat at her table, coffee cups between them. "The drive should take about 2 weeks," Adam replied. "Then I'll need to head back south." Willow nodded, trying to hide her disappointment at the brevity of his stay. "Will you be staying in town?" "That was my plan, yes. You're welcome to use the barn again," Willow offered, then added hurriedly, "When you're not with the herd, I mean." Adam's eyes softened. "I'd like that." "If you're sure." "I am." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of shared meals, conversations by the fire, and moments of companionable silence. Adam would leave at dawn to work with the cattle drive, returning to Willow's in the evenings, dusty and tired but always with a smile for her. Willow found herself looking forward to his returns with an eagerness that both thrilled and frightened her. She was falling in love with Adam Nichols, and the realization was terrifying. Matthew had been gone less than a year. Was it disloyal to feel this way about another man so soon? On Adam's last evening in Durango, they sat on Willow's porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in gold and pink. A comfortable silence had fallen between them, though Willow could sense something unspoken hanging in the air. "I've been thinking," Adam said finally, his voice low and serious. "About the future." Willow's heart quickened. "Oh, my brother's ranch is doing well. He's offered me a partnership." Adam turned to look at her directly. "It could be a good life, stable, the kind of place where a man might settle down." "That sounds wonderful," Willow replied carefully, unsure where he was going with this. Adam took a deep breath. "Willow, I know it hasn't been long since Matthew passed, and I would never want to rush you or dishonor his memory. But these past months, getting to know you through your letters and these 2 weeks here," he paused, searching for words. "I've developed feelings for you, strong ones." Willow's breath caught in her throat. "Adam, you don't have to say anything now," he continued quickly. "I understand if it's too soon. But I wanted you to know before I leave tomorrow that if you ever decided you might want a new start, there would be a place for you, with me." Tears welled in Willow's eyes. "I've been so confused," she admitted, "feeling what I feel for you so soon after Matthew. I didn't know if it was right." Adam reached over and tentatively took her hand. "There's no proper timeline for the heart, Willow, and from everything you've told me about Matthew, I think he would want you to be happy." "I think so too," she whispered, squeezing his hand. "I need more time, Adam." "But I feel the same way, about you." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "Then I'll wait, however long you need." Adam left the next morning with a promise to write and return in the fall. Their goodbye was tender but hopeful, sealed with a chaste kiss that left Willow's heart racing long after he'd ridden away. Summer passed in a flurry of letters and preparations. Willow made the difficult decision to sell the homestead, keeping only Matthew's pocket watch and her favorite pieces of furniture. The rest she sold or donated, preparing for whatever the future might hold. When autumn came, Adam returned as promised. This time, he stayed for a month, helping Willow finalize the sale of her property and decide what to take with her to her new life. They were married on a crisp November day in St. Mary's Chapel, the same church where they had first met. Unlike the lonely day of mourning a year earlier, the church was now filled with Willow's friends from town and several of Adam's cowboy companions who had ridden up for the occasion. Father Bennett performed the ceremony, his aged face beaming as he watched 2 people who had both known profound loss find joy in each other. "Love is a miracle," he told them during the service, "especially when it grows from the soil of grief. It reminds us that the human heart has an infinite capacity for renewal." As Adam and Willow exchanged their vows, Willow felt Matthew's presence not as a shadow or a ghost, but as a blessing. She would always carry him in her heart, just as she knew Adam would always carry Sarah in his. Their past loves were part of who they were, threads in the fabric of their shared future. The journey to Santa Fe was long but filled with anticipation. Willow found herself excited for this new chapter, this unexpected second chance at happiness. Adam's brother welcomed her warmly, and the ranch, a sprawling property nestled in a valley with mountains on the horizon, immediately felt like it could become home. Their first night in their new house, Adam carried Willow over the threshold despite her laughing protests that it wasn't necessary for a second marriage. "Every new beginning deserves its traditions," he insisted, setting her gently on her feet in the main room. A fire burned in the hearth, and Adam had arranged her favorite pieces of furniture brought all the way from Durango to make the space feel welcoming. "Do you think you could be happy here?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. Willow stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, pouring all her love and hope into the gesture. "I already am happy, Adam, because I'm with you." Years passed, and the ranch prospered under Adam and his brother's care. Willow established a small school for the children of ranch hands and neighboring homesteads, finding joy in teaching that she hadn't known she possessed. Their family grew with the birth of a daughter they named Sarah, after Adam's first wife, and a son they called Matthew, honoring Willow's first husband. The children grew up knowing the stories of their namesakes, understanding that love could be expansive enough to honor the past while embracing the present. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Willow by taking her back to Durango. They visited old friends, walked familiar streets, and on Sunday morning slipped into St. Mary's Chapel for the service. Afterward, as the congregation filed out, Adam and Willow remained seated in a pew near the front. The church was quiet, sunlight streaming through the simple stained glass windows. "It feels like a lifetime ago," Willow said softly. "That day I sat here alone." Adam took her hand, his thumb caressing her knuckles. "In some ways it was, we've both changed so much." "For the better, I think," Willow replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Definitely for the better," Adam agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, surrounded by memories both painful and precious. Willow thought of the young widow she had been, convinced that happiness was forever beyond her reach. She wished she could tell that grieving woman that the heart was more resilient than she knew, that joy could return in unexpected ways, and that love, true, deep love, could happen more than once in a lifetime. As if reading her thoughts, Adam squeezed her hand. "Ready to go home?" Willow smiled up at her husband, this man who had walked into her life when she needed him most, this cowboy who had taken her hand when she sat alone in an empty church and in doing so had changed both their lives forever. "Yes," she said, rising to her feet. "Let's go home." Hand in hand, they walked down the aisle and out into the bright Colorado sunshine, their shared past behind them, and their future still full of possibility and promise stretching out before them like the endless western sky.